Well, what I was going to say, I mentioned that I speak to a lot of college classes, and one thing I like to tell them, that not that I give a whole lot of advice, but my advice to them is, if when it comes to looking for a job, the advice I would give them is to first decide on a good company, more than a position or anything else. Just find a good company. It might be Patagonia because of their love for the environment. You know, it might be Coca-Cola because it's a global company. It could be Georgia Power Company, or it could be a small company. But once they decide on that company, then do as much research as they can and become very knowledgeable about that company. Then go in for the interview. And the pitch that I would use is, Ms. Procter, I have researched your company. I want to go to work for your company. I love what your company stands for, its values. It's the kind of company I want to, spend my life being a part of. And all I'm asking you is give me a chance. If you'll hire me for any position, I have confidence in myself. You'll be glad you hired me. I'll do a great job, and I'll take any job just to get started. And then after they hire you, because how could they not hire you after that? Then after they hire you, then just start accepting responsibility, doing the hard jobs that nobody else wants to do. And before long, they have to redefine your job position and your title and give you more money. And the next thing you know, you're president.
Right.
That was sort of the way I did it. And I can tell you, all companies are looking for good, hardworking, dependable people.
Right.
Those soft skills go a long way, especially in a Japanese company where they just want you to show up every day ready to go to work and ready to learn more and ready to contribute. And you just have to earn their respect and prove your value to the company. And before long, you're where you want to be.
Yeah.
But I do see some people going after the wrong things. I think it'd be a terrible thing to have a great salary in a bad company.
Right.
Yeah, one whose ethics you didn't approve of. And you know yourself from various case studies, it's not always black and white when it comes to good ethics. There are a lot of gray areas that really test you in terms of ethics. You could make a decision and someone could make you look like a really bad person, but you did it for good reasons.
Right.
But it's not easy.
Oh, yeah.
Those decisions are not as easy as we'd like for them to be. Two things maybe I would have told myself is to get as much experience as possible as quickly as possible. And that means working hard and accepting a lot of new responsibilities and being willing to move from this to that and try new things and not being comfortable. And the other thing is to try to get close to some really good leaders, some people you admired and you could learn from whom you could learn how to be a better leader, good role model, a good mentor, those kinds of things. I can just think of so many examples where it was not obvious what we should do going in, but looking back, I saw that we did the right thing. Two quick ones. One was early one year we decided we needed to close a plant in Macon. It was a yarn manufacturing plant. We had a meeting up here in this office, and we sat around and we decided, okay, in September of this year we have to close that plant. We were losing something like 30 cents a pound for every pound of product we made because it was just so much cheaper on the open market. So I said, okay, what do we do? How do we do that? And some people suggested, well, here's what we'll do. We'll keep it a secret. We won't tell anybody until September, and then we'll close the plant. I said, yeah, that's one thing. We could do that. There are 30 of us in this room, and the odds of keeping that a secret from now until September, I'd say, are pretty remote. So it's not going to be a secret, and everybody's going to know, and we're not going to be the ones to tell them. So that's not going to work. So to make a long story short, what we ended up doing was we went down and made an announcement to all the employees. In September this year, we're closing this plant.
And how many employees was that?
I guess that was a relatively small plant. It was highly automated, probably had 40 or 50 employees. But what we did was we worked with the entire complex. We've got 2.5 million square feet of manufacturing space there. We've got 12 different plants. And so we worked with the entire area to, if someone quit or retired in some other place, we held that job for one of these people. So we were able to not have to lay anybody off from that. So that was And we went over in September when we closed the plant. We invited everybody back who'd ever worked there, and we had a little ceremony where Japanese custom, you pour sake on the machines to thank them for 20 years
Of service.
Thank them for 20 years of service. I've got oh, here we go. It was the little memorabilia we passed around from that day. It was just something neat for the employees. Another example is we were sitting up here having another meeting one year, and I guess it's been 2003, when we'd had 2 years where we'd lost a lot of money. And in my management meeting, someone said, well, one thing for sure, we can't change the way things are in Macon, the wage structure and everything. We just, we can't change that. And so we went on and talked about everything. I raised my hand. I said, wait a second. Why can't we change things? They said, well, you just can't change it. To make, again, a long story short, I went down to Macon and I met with 20 groups of 50 people. We had about 1,000 people, 20 groups of 50, and I spent an hour with each group. And we talked to them about the competitive situation, how we were losing business every day, and we had to get more competitive, and that we had to cut salaries, including mine. We had to change benefits. We had to do all this sort of stuff. And I guess maybe 2 employees complained during the meetings, but the vast majority of them came up to me and said, Alex, do whatever you have to do to save my job, So we trust you as the leader to save my job. So
do you think that trust
that's in that book. That's in that book.
Oh, in the other book.
Yeah.
Do you think that trust helped because they saw that you were a part of that as well? You said your salary was being cut as well. Do you think that if yours hadn't been and theirs was, do you think that divides people
definitely.
Ethical leadership.
Yeah, there's got to be some consistency there. And there's another component of that when I usually tell the story, I spent 2 days talking with all the employees, and the next day I went over and I met with the mayor and the county commission chairman. And I told them what I'd just done and the discussions. I just wanted them to know that we were okay. We were just taking some changes, making some changes to make us more competitive. About a year later, I saw the mayor of Macon. He said, Alex, you don't know what it meant to me that you came by and told me that. Back to why was I given this position? I'm the only non-Japanese who's ever served in one of these group leadership positions. And I think somehow or other, through knowing the father and knowing the son and them knowing me, that they know I'm not going to come in here and blow that or not follow the philosophy. And
also trust.
Yeah.
Also trust.
And that, good word, good emphasis, because their trust in me, really motivates me to do things right. Not that I'm not motivated to do that anyway, but it just adds another layer of that. And when we screw up, when we have a mistake or some environmental thing happens that that was somebody spilled something they weren't supposed to spill, I'm the one who goes to Japan and bows my head and apologizes for it.
Takes ownership of that.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. I mean, that's that accountability you talked about earlier, and that's good. I being an old Navy guy, I can relate it. The captain of the ship has no excuses. If anything happens, it's his fault.
Right.
And that makes him ensure that training is in place, the right people are, put in the right jobs. It's a good system, and I think most companies should work that. I can't stand, when the senior guys pass the buck or say they didn't know.
Right.
My predecessors in this job there were 3, and they were all different. One was extremely strong, extremely brilliant, who made every decision, wanted all decisions to come to him, and the other 2 were less that way. One was more charismatic than the other, but they were all different. They were all Japanese, of course. And when I was asked to take this job on the flight back home, I said, well, what kind of leader will I be? What kind of management style will I have? For example, my first Japanese president, we loved him. I still play golf with him in Japan. He's a wonderful guy, but if he got mad, he could rant for 5 hours. And I said...
We all love a good leadership rant.
And I said, do I need to rant for 4 or 5 hours? I said, that's not my style. And so I thought about it. I finally decided that I would not try to copy any of them, that I would somehow try to do it my own way. And there's not a whole lot of screaming in that. But my way is to surround myself with people a little smarter or a lot smarter than I am, and then to support them and let them do their thing. And I like the way I have done it. I mean, I've got a really strong team, very deep team, very capable team, and they make a lot of decisions that in the past I might have made, but they're making them, and I feel real good about that. It was an experiment on my part, but I feel good about it. I guess it's sort of knowing yourself and approaching the job.
And you should feel good about that. Our top leaders create leaders, not followers.
I think so.
Right?
I agree with that. And when I left the company, I told you I left the company.
Right, for a few years.
I left the company because of that philosophical disagreement with my president at the time. I was his trusted right hand. He loved me and I loved him. But I would pound my fist on his desk and say, "You're not preparing our managers to be good leaders." He was making them come to him for all the decisions, and he was the most capable person I've ever seen. A brilliant man. He could decide anything just like that. But
you can't do it all either.
He has the best capacity for doing it all of anyone I've ever met. I mean, he works, all the time.
It's his whole life.
Yeah, it is his whole life. But I was 35 years old, and I said, God,
there's got to be more to life than this.
Yeah. So I left.
When
Well, that's another thing I love to discuss with students. It's your responsibility to balance your life, Rose.
Yep.
And,
take ownership of that, right?
For the first 11 years I was with YKK, I wanted to be Japanese. I loved the language, I loved the culture, I loved everything about it. So I worked long hours. I wouldn't let my wife call me, or if she did call me, I would disguise my voice so that it sounded businesslike. God, looking back on these things, it's terrible. But I didn't go to a lot of kiddie baseball games and things like that. And now I go out sometimes and speak to Japanese leaders, and I say, "You guys do it the easy way. The easy way is to work all the time.
Yeah.
That's easy." I said, "The hard part is when you're a 28-year-old manager going into your Japanese president saying, 'I've got to leave today at 4 to go to my son's baseball game.'"
Right.
That's tough.
It's very tough.
That's very tough. But so as president, I've tried to create an environment where nobody has to sneak out the back door. I trust the people. I really don't care what time they get here. Really don't care what time they leave.
As long as they do the job.
As long as they do the job.
And that's been successful?
Yeah, I think so. I hope so.